All right, Steeler fans, it is time for winners and losers. We have 3 winners and 8 losers I almost said on the defensive side of the football, but no, they're going to be on both sides. Don't worry. 3 winners and 8 losers. Now, you might be saying, Jeff, you probably could have had a lot more. This is a weird game. I said that in the first half. It was a weird game. Let's start off with the winners. I'm going to go with Kenneth Gainwell as a winner. He had 10 carries for 92 yards. He had a 55-yard long that was on the fake tush push. Great play call. A 9.2-yard average. But he also added 6 receptions for 30 yards. So the guy goes for over 120 total. He had a 5-yard average from a receiving perspective, a 13-yard long, and 6 targets. Jaylen Warren has done a great job. And I will be honest, there were times this year where I wanted more Jaylen Warren. I think, though, what they're finding is that they have a very good dual threat 2-back system with Gainwell and Warren. Do I wish that sometimes they would have them do different things based on down and distance and situations? Sure. But ultimately, you can't complain with the results. Kenneth Gainwell has been very good the last probably 4 or 5 weeks. He's actually been good all season. Remember, he was the one that played in Dublin. He was the RB1 that week and had a great game. He's been very good for the Steelers. I like the way they're handling things, but ultimately he deserves to be on the winners list. He had a great game. The next winner, TJ Watt. I know. A lot of people out there are going to say, Jeff, he made 1 play. Well, guess what? That's 1 more play than everyone else. Because the stat line, he had 5 tackles, 2 solo, 1 sack, 1 quarterback hit, the only quarterback hit, a tackle for loss, and a forced fumble. And by the way, that resulted in a touchdown, mind you. So you had TJ Watt. He was the only player that made a play. Yes, Y.A. Black ripped the ball away from DeAndre Swift at the bottom of a pile short. That was a great play. But this play was the biggest play. When you had the moment where Kyle Duggar, drops an interception, TJ Watt made that play. So I put him on the winners list. I feel like he's deserving of that. You could see, though, and this is something they're starting to do, especially with Nick Herbig out there. Darnell Wright, if you listen to my podcast on Wednesday, the Behind Enemy Line segment, they've been super happy, the Bears have, with Darnell Wright and his ability to stop that pass rusher. And they've been putting TJ Watt, they'll chip him from time to time, but they've been giving him that island and saying, look, we think our right tackle can handle him. And we'll shade the other side. Nick Herbig got more attention. He got more chips in this game than usual. And you know what? He wasn't TJ Watt winning all the time, but he did win on that one occasion, and that equated in a touchdown. So that puts him on the winners list. And then lastly, I have takeaways. The Steelers needed to take the ball away. They did that. They had 2 total. There was the fumble that I mentioned by Y.A. Black, the strip sack, which was recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. Those takeaways result in points for the 2nd straight week. Last week, they put up 14 points off of turnovers. This week, they put up 21 points in 2 games off of turnovers that the defense scores. That's pretty impressive. And those are your 3 winners. I could not think. I looked at the box score. I looked at team statistics. It's really all I had. So then we go to the losers list. Let's go to Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph was 24 of 31, 171 yards, a 5.5-yard average. He threw 1 touchdown, 1 interception, was sacked 2 times for 12 yards, and an 86.9 rating. So Mason Rudolph is on the losers list. And again, if you follow this podcast and you follow my work, you might say, well, Jeff, Aaron Rodgers has had games like this and you didn't have him on the loser list. I get it. I understand what you're saying, but I will say this in my defense. Mason Rudolph, I guess maybe we all kind of did him wrong in our minds, or at least I did. I felt that he could come in and almost give them a better chance of winning. But Mason Rudolph came in and he wasn't making the throws that we were accustomed to seeing him make throughout his career. Let me give you an example. So Mason Rudolph, he was a guy that, go back to 2023, when he was the one that orchestrated the push to the playoffs down the stretch, going to Seattle and winning those games. He was the one that was getting the job done, and his deep ball was amazing. What you saw in Chicago, and it wasn't an overly windy day, he couldn't connect on passes that were probably more than 15 yards down the field. He just couldn't. The accuracy wasn't there. I don't know what it was. He was not feeling the pressure in the pocket either. It was very, very strange to see Mason Rudolph play this way. We're used to seeing him make some really bad decisions. We're used to seeing him have some turnover-worthy plays, but we weren't used to him not being able to connect on deep passes. Mason Rudolph, and then you could kind of feel it. Arthur Smith, especially DK Metcalf, gets banged up, and it's just like, okay, we're just going to shrink it. We're going to shrink everything down. Here's your sample. Short throws, short throws, short throws, short throws. Matriculate your way down the field. That works, especially if you have a lead, but when you're trying to come from behind, not so much. I thought we were going to get more from Mason Rudolph, and we didn't. That's why he's on the loser list. All right, pass rush. The Steelers, I mentioned this on the winner side. 1 sack, 1 quarterback hit. I don't need to remind everyone that the Steelers were third entering this week 12. They were third in the NFL with sacks in 33. 1 sack of Caleb Williams. Now, I understand that Chicago hasn't surrendered a lot of sacks. They came into this game only surrendering 16, which is tied for 5th. So it's not like something that they're used to doing, but the Steelers have had their way with some good offensive lines, but that was not the case in this game. You didn't hear Cam Hayward's name called. You didn't hear Derek Harmon, Y.A. Black, any other interior players. The edge rushers weren't getting home. And when they did try to put pressure on Caleb Williams, he was able to escape it more than he wasn't. It was a bad game for the pass rush. The twist, the stunts, we saw Nick Herbig where he would dip underneath. They were getting picked up rather easily. I'm not sure if they weren't disguising things properly. The Steelers' pass rush was not up to snuff, and that's why they're on the loser list. Let's continue on. Let's go to the turnovers. The Steelers' 2 turnovers were absolute killers. The first pass, interception. Let's not forget, the Bears get the ball. This is to start the game. They go 3 and out. Punt the ball away. The first pass thrown is a deep pass to DK Metcalf, intercepted. The Bears take the ball, go down and score a touchdown. Then you had the fumble, in which case the strip sack, fumble, that turns into a touchdown. Now, this doesn't get counted as a turnover, but I personally count it, and now I'm talking about the turnover on downs. The tush push with Connor Hayward, where he looks like he got the yard to gain. I swear, if there was a time to challenge it, it would have been then. He looked like he had the yard to gain, and what do? They turn it over. What happens? They take it, the Bears, and they drive down the field, and they score a touchdown. 21 points off of those situations. Now, only 14 are going to count off official turnovers, but the turnover on downs, they turn that into 14. Those turnovers, that is how the Bears have won all year. And if there's ever a time where you're thinking, okay, we can't turn it over, got to keep it clean, this was one of those games, and they didn't do it. Let's go to the next loser, the pass defense. 19 catches, 239 yards, 12.6 average, 3 touchdowns, 25-yard long. That is the stat line for the Bears receivers. They had their way. And I'm not going to lie, if Caleb Williams connected on some more of his throws, he probably would have been over 300 yards. They were running wide open. I mean, wide open. You saw those end zone cam looks of replays after the play, and there were times where Caleb Williams just missed wide open receivers. The Steelers, I don't know if it was because Joey Porter got taken out of the game because of his hip flexor injury. I don't know if it was a miscommunication. Who knows? They have good pass catchers, and we talked about this going into this game. You have Rome Odunze, you have DJ Moore, Luther Burden's a good player, and then you have like Loveland, Kmet at tight end. They have good weapons. Man, did the Steelers defense struggle stopping him through the air. If it wasn't Caleb Williams getting flushed out of the pocket or being flustered and throwing the ball, and, not accurately, off target, we'll say, wasn't good. That's why the pass defense is on the loser list. The red zone defense is the next loser. Now, the Steelers, let's recap this. The Steelers' red zone defense was actually pretty good heading into this game. 6th best in the NFL statistically, surrendering touchdowns on 51.4% of their conversions. Now, the Chicago red zone offense, just to remind you, they were tied for 20th in the NFL. They were only scoring 54.29% of their red zone trips. Well, guess what, Chicago? Good for you, bad for the Steelers. They go 3 for 3. The Steelers did not have a red zone stop the entire game. And this was one of those games where if you could have a bend, don't break effort in any of these games, just give me one game where you don't give up all these touchdowns. This was one of them, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't get the stop. So for me, the red zone offense for the Steelers, it's on the loser list. Next, let's go to the injuries. We have 3 losers left. The injuries are next. More to add to the list. Let me run these down for you. Broderick Jones, he leaves the game with a stinger, does not return. Joey Porter Jr. leaves with a hip flexor, does not return. DK Metcalf, he left twice with an ankle injury, was able to return, but when he came back in, you did have to ask yourself, was he limited with what he could do? Could he run, do a deep route? They just seem to start working him over the middle more and more. They were never really effective routes, but these injuries start to add up. So now you're talking about Joey Porter Jr. out, hip flexor. Is he going to be available next week? You already talked about the players that missed this week. So Aaron Rodgers misses this week with his wrist injury. Is he capable of coming back next week? We shall see. What about Alex Highsmith and his pectoral injury? He's someone that absolutely the Steelers could benefit from having just to kind of give them another look on outside linebacker. We don't know, but these injuries are starting to accumulate. Does Broderick Jones get over this the stinger in his neck? Who knows? Stingers can last longer than some people think they do. So this is definitely an issue, something we're going to have to keep our eyes on heading into the Buffalo game, but more injuries added to the list, and that's not something you want to see. Next, let's go to the penalties. The Steelers were penalized 6 times for 41 yards, and that's not a crazy amount, and the Bears were penalized more. But again, I'm going to say it was about when the penalties came. 2 situations that we talked about in the first half of the show. You had the punt, the 54-yard punt by Corliss Waitman, and it was down at the 5, and you're thinking, here we go, it's a great play. Then all of a sudden, the holding call that we thought was on Chicago is actually on Ben Skoranek, and now they have to repunt the ball, and they start at their 40. Think about that time or that distance in terms of where the starting field position is. On the other side of the coin, you have that play where Mason Rudolph scrambles away. He's able to make a play with his legs. Illegal formation. Those are the penalties that are absolute killers. And those are the penalties that, if I'm being honest, good teams don't have those happen a lot. Good teams don't have the illegal formations where you just have to be on the line of scrimmage. This is week 12 of the NFL season. What are we doing? And people, again, might scream from the high heavens that it's on coaching. These players are professionals. How do you not know? Get on the line of scrimmage. There's 2 receivers there. One of you, get on the line of scrimmage. And if that play happens and doesn't get called back because of that penalty, it's a different ball of wax. I think they at least tie it up, send the game probably into overtime. But I will reiterate that the penalties that come, it's a fragile team. This team cannot withstand penalties, and good teams don't have penalties like that. Let's go to the last loser. The last loser is the Steelers' AFC North lead. What am I talking about? It's gone. The Steelers now are 6-5. The Ravens beat the Jets. They're 6-5. And you might be wondering, okay, what's next? Well, what are we going to do? Well, what are you going to do is the Steelers are going to be having to scoreboard watch. They're going to have to be watched. You felt this coming. The Ravens have won 5 games in a row. And the Steelers look lost on more often than not. They look completely lost. And so for me, I look at this game and the way that it fell and the way that the Ravens went. And I'm not about to say that the Ravens are guaranteed to win the division, but I will say that the road to an AFC North victory, because let's be honest, folks, if you look at the playoff picture, I don't think the AFC North is going to have 2 teams getting into the playoffs. So you either win the division and get in and host a game, or you are on the outside looking in. The 2 games against the Ravens are going to be absolutely pivotal, but so are these games coming up, like the game against the Buffalo Bills in Week 13. The Steelers still have the Lions on the schedule. Monday nighter against Miami, who's playing better. I'm telling you, there's still a lot of football left, but if the Steelers have a hope and a prayer of making something of this season and winning the division, they better get their act together pretty darn quick. That's all I'm going to say. So there you have the 3 winners and the 8 losers after the Steelers' 31-28 loss to the Chicago Bears in Week 12. This is going to be a game that they're going to look back on, especially if they're on the outside looking at the playoffs and say, that might be one we let get away from us. We let it get away. I don't know. People want to criticize. That's fine. But ultimately, understand we are going to be here every step of the way for you at the Steel Curtain Network. Make sure you check out all of our podcasts at wherever you get your podcasts by searching Steel Curtain Network on all social media platforms. Find us there. Search us Steel Curtain Network. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. And then lastly, make sure you check out steelcurtainnetwork.com. That's our website. Updated multiple times a day, and we don't go anywhere whether the Steelers win or lose. There are some outlets that when the Steelers have a tough game, I don't feel like podcasting, I don't feel like writing. That's not us. We'll be there every which way and sideways, win, lose, or tie. Hate that, but still, steelcurtainnetwork.com. But that does it for me, folks. I'll be back on Wednesday behind enemy lines. all that fun stuff, DEF CON levels, you name it. We'll have it for you there on Wednesday. In the meantime, you know how he finishes up. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great start to your week. We'll see you on Wednesday. Go Steelers.